Live GovCast here. Here we go! Let this GovCast start! We go! Here to rock the world! Thanks so much for tuning in. If you were hoping for Jack signing, he is not going to be here today, folks. But we got the great guest of Pat Helmers!
Woo, welcome.
All right. So we are kicking it off today, Dre. You and I, Jack is with family in Texas. So we do have a great guest. Really excited for Pat, who does run a podcast of his own, Sales Babble, and has a little bit of government sales experience. Before we get into all of that, I'd love to hear about your weekend. I know you had engagement party. It was also Easter. So anything you could share with our audience today?
I'm trying to think of PG-13. It was a fun weekend. We there was probably about 50 of us. It was some close friends, family came down. I wish I had some pictures of my parents' house. They made it look amazing. Just a lot of flowers and decorations. And yeah, we had that on Saturday, which was super fun. And then it took us into the next day. We went back and there was a repeat on Easter. So that's where we spent our day and then slept from like 8 p.m. on Sunday.
Crash bar. So do they play any games at engagement parties? Like I know baby showers, they like drink baby bottles or
Yeah. No, it was more just like a celebration. Everyone's dancing and eating and drinking and, just having a good time, really.
That's awesome. Congrats. Yeah, my Easter was good too. Was able to enjoy it with my brother and sister-in-law. They have a big Italian family, so there was like 30 folks there and
fun.
Everybody cooked. They had like meatballs, lasagna, pasta. I'm like used to the ham, the traditional.
That's even better.
I loved it. I was like, I'll take the leftovers. So and eating that all week for lunch.
What's going on? I haven't been to church in a while. We used to go on Easter, but are they still having church? I guess mass right now. I'm guessing so, just maybe with a mask. I haven't been in a while.
Yeah, I didn't attend personally, but yes, you could go to church on Sunday, Easter Sunday, and they also were streaming it virtual, which they have been doing for a while. So
okay, cool.
Yeah, definitely good. So all the churchgoers out there, if you're trying to go to church and you want to protect yourself, there are churches you can go and find them, and they stream it live, so you can be safe and also get your blessings.
Yes.
Yes. So I'd love to kick it off because I know we just wrapped off a quarter and we have an exciting guest. So I want to talk more about sales and government sales today. So if we could please bring in our guest GovCast team, Pat Helmers. Welcome aboard.
Hey, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's an honor because you are on the other side. Normally, we were talking earlier before the show, you are interviewing people, and now we're going to be interviewing and grilling you today. So I am excited to hear what you have to bring to the table because we can learn some stuff from you. But I love to, introduce you. I know you are the founder of Abanero Media and also the Sales Babble podcast. And love just to tell our audience about, there it is, a little plug, who you are and, what you've been up to, and just give a little background on who Pat Helmers is.
Well, I got a long history, and I think it would be pretty boring if I went through all of it. But actually, I got here in a roundabout way. My background's actually, my master's degree is actually in software engineering. Oh. And I was a software engineer for a long time. And then during the downturn of the internet bubble in 2001, I got laid off. And I laid off all the people that worked for me and myself. But I was always interested in why some of the projects I worked on kept getting canceled, which is what happened, why I got laid off. And I came to realize that we were building things that I thought were great, but customers didn't really love. So I started to gravitate towards the front end, working with the customer teams. And when I got laid off, I thought, you know what, I think I might go into sales. And I partnered up with a tech startup that was selling a web-based app, which was hot in those days, which was new. And I self-taught myself sales. And within a couple of years, I had people working for me and I was teaching people sales. And I did that for a number of years. And it was probably after a number of years. I remember once I was driving in Missouri, up and down the hills in Missouri. I was going on a sales call, and I was like, I couldn't find a sales podcast that I really liked, because I love podcasts. Always gravitated toward radio, always gravitated towards audio. And I thought, I should start a podcast, right? Right. And
that's what everyone thinks on a road trip.
Yeah, and I was thinking, I don't like any of these. So I thought, so my wife and I were kicking around some names. We go, there's a lot of babble out there about selling. That's baloney. Let's call it sales babble. And we did. And I've been doing it for like a long time, 7 years,
Wow.
Every week. And I've talked to people, all kinds of sales. It's mostly B2B sales. It's mostly, more kind of the enterprise sale kind of podcast. Although we've had, we've had real estate agents and all kinds of other people on there. And it's been really super fun.
That's good. Well, what made you take that? You said you kind of just stepped into sales, but why would you want to do that to yourself? Why would you want to go through those ups and downs of a sales roller coaster?
Because I'd been doing software development for 22, 23 years. I have a couple patents in telecom, and I'd been there, done that, Yeah. And the thing is anybody can build. People like to build stuff, but to actually provide value to the world, that's where sales really comes in. Yeah,
in my mind, I always think of those people like the left brain or right brain type mentality. Ever picture our developers, because we're a SaaS startup company. Well, not so much a startup anymore. We've been very successful throughout our 8.5 years of existence. But I could never imagine one of our developers getting on a phone. They want to avoid contact at all possible, in a dark room, and just give me my computer and I will get my job done. But when it comes to the outbound, hello, how you doing today, or visiting people, I don't see how those two worlds collide.
Yeah, and a lot of people feel that way. Stephen, you're not the only guy to say something like that. But the thing about my podcast, it's selling secrets for non-sellers. It's really focused on people whose background is not in selling. They didn't have the lemonade stand at 9 years old. They weren't trying to sell stuff and buy stuff. They were like taking stuff apart. That's what they were doing, and putting things back together. That's what they were doing. But I believe that anybody can become okay at selling. Maybe not the most phenomenal sales professional out there, but I believe anybody can learn enough about persuasion that they can convince some. It's not so much convincing something, but work with somebody to better understand the value of something that they're bringing, and then actually have them buy that. A lot of people have a lot of passion about something they're about, and they know that if they really want that passion to come out to the world, their art, their craft, they got to learn a little bit about persuasion.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
So is that what a lot of your content is then on your podcast, is going through different tips on teaching people how to sell, or I guess what is the content like on your podcast?
It works both ends. It both works strategies and tactics, and strategies are commonly wrapped around a mindset of, I believe that the right mindset that people have when they approach selling is, I'm just here to help you. Mm-hmm. Let's just have a conversation. Let's see what your struggles are, what your challenges are, what your problems, but also what are your aspirations and what are your hopes and what are your dreams. I like to think of it as what you're happily ever after. And then if you can have a conversation about that for a while, then you can understand in 20, 30 minutes, well, maybe I can help you. Maybe I have something in my bag I can pull out that you might find value. Maybe not, but I might know a guy. I might know Andrea. She's just right down the road. She's a really good friend of mine. She could hook you up, so. And
Drake can hook it up. She's got all that government intelligence. She is the peek behind the curtains.
Yep.
No, that's great. So when it comes down to it, you said you taught yourself sales. So what was the first thing you did to teach yourself sales? Did you pick up a book? Did you listen to a podcast? Or who was your influencer to kind of get that knowledge that you put into the real world?
Well, the first thing we needed to do was we had this wonderful product that nobody knew anything about. So I bought a book, a spiral book of leads of all the school districts in Illinois, because I was selling educational software. And
was that Common Goal Systems?
It was a Common Goal System. It was a system called Teacher Ease, and nobody knew about it. So I just decided that I need to cold call them. So I bought Stephen Schiffman's book, Cold Calling Something or Other.
Great first name, though. Steven's a solid first name. I like that book already.
Oh, he's awesome. And he's been on Sales Babble twice.
All right, I'll write it down. I'll check that out.
It's an old book, but it's still a relevant book. And I would call them up and try to find out, like, I don't know what I said back in those days, honestly. And probably you wouldn't want to take advice from what I said back in the day. Yeah, I did a lot of struggling. I did a lot of, but I took his advice, and I would write out exactly what I was going to say, and then make the phone call, and then I would tune it, and then make another phone call and tune it. And after I did a dozen or so phone calls, I was like, I kind of got it where, and I found I was getting 1 out of 10. Maybe 1 out of 10 people would say, yeah, I'm interested. I'd like to learn more. And I was like, that's a pretty awesome rate. It's 10%, right? And it was in that, this is very goofy. When I was working for I started working for those people pro bono. I was on unemployment. First time I'd ever been on unemployment. I was making really good money back at Lucent because I was a manager there. Mm-hmm. So I was doing nothing, and I was on commission, and we weren't selling anything. Huh. But by May, I just came to the realization I can't do this. We didn't know at the time that school districts don't buy in the spring. Oh, they can't buy until the monies get released from the county.
July 1st, fiscal year.
Right, which is July 1st. So all you're trying to do is you're just trying to set up these deals. You can't really expect to be closing them. And we were thinking, we need to do monthly quotas and quarter quotas or something like that. We're like, no. In this business, it became you had a yearly quota,
annual quota,
because you just kind of queued them up, and then in July the money would start coming in, and it would come in, and then all of a sudden in August a lot would come, and then September, and then it'd drop off October, and by November, December there wasn't much. Maybe there'd be a little blip in January for the first of the year, and then you were done. So it was actually tough to run a business too. We had to have lines of credit because we had like zero revenue in February, March, April. Maybe June we would get some money because people are like, oh, we got to spend this money before we lose it, kind of thing.
Use it or lose it. Yeah, that's true.
Anyway, so that was the world I was living when I first started. And it was fun. It was fun.
Would you go back again?
To doing that, I think I've been there, done that. But I really like selling. And I've done a lot of what do you call that? Fractional sales management and stuff like that over the last few years. And it's fun getting back on the phone for a month or two and just kind of banging out and then teaching people how to do it and listening to them and coaching them. But yeah, that was a fun time. But I think I'm ready to move on.
So I was reading I was looking at your website before, and I saw different tips that you go through, some of which were related to cold calling, right? And how to cold call without being too pushy. And I feel like, because I'm in a management role also, and when people come into the job and it's a cold call, but they've never done it, they're like, well, how do I get the sale, right? How do I book the demo without being super pushy? And so, because I noticed that on your site too, what's your advice for that? What kind of tips do you give around cold calling?
Because I'm in the B2B space, and that's a terrific question. That's a question a lot of people struggle with, Andrea. Because we're in the B2B space, the first thing to do is to connect with them on LinkedIn and see that, I see you're in the same industry as I am. I see that you're really experienced in this. I'd love to connect. And then it starts to become a long game. You wait for them to connect back with you. And then if they do, then you say, hey, thanks. I really appreciate you connecting with you. You might ask them, I wonder if you might ask them for some advice. You might say, I just read this article that was interesting that you might find of value, and you send it to them. Sometimes they never connect with you on LinkedIn because they don't log in a lot.
Yep.
So what you need to do is you can send them an email, and it's pretty easy to figure out email. There's tools to do this that I recommend. And the email says, hey, I'm just following up from the LinkedIn connection request.
Simple.
And then sometimes they'll come back to you then, but sometimes they won't. And sometimes you're in a rush. So then maybe 3 days later. So now we're talking first we did this on Monday, and then on Wednesday I sent the email. And then on Friday I might actually call them up and say, "Hey, it's Pat. I'm following up on the email that I sent and the connection request about dot 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 dot." And it's lots of times they will not get back to you. Like most of the time.
You have to love rejection in sales.
But that's okay, because if it goes to voicemail, that's wonderful. Because I'm an audio guy, I'm a podcast guy. Voicemails are like little radio commercials. So then if you like have you've set a set of scripts, then you could just start leaving a voicemail like every 3 or 4 days that says, "Oh, it's Pat again. I forgot to tell you about this one other aspect that we have." Or I forgot to tell you that we're rolling out this new thing. Or we just had an event the other day and I was talking to one of their clients and they said this. And you leave 3, 4, 5 of those, people will send you an email, say, "I'm not interested." Or they'll say, "Hey, I really appreciate," and you'd be surprised. People are kind of nice. They'll say, "Hey, I really appreciate that you're like, that you're following up, because I know I've been really busy." Sometimes they even
Following up or
apologize.
Does anybody ever say, "You're stalking me? What are you doing?"
Yeah. People aren't that. I've found people aren't that way. I found people are much nicer than you think.
Yep.
And it's not so much they're skeptical and they don't like you. It's like they're busy.
Yeah.
They've got other things on their life. This is not the top of mind for them. Sure, it's top of mind for the seller. They want to get the deal, right? Because they're going to make money on it. But it's not top of mind on them. But if you do it enough, you'll bump into people that say, "Yeah, I've been thinking about doing something like this. Yeah, let's hop on a call." Yeah.
That's a good point, because just reading, I get Outside magazine, and I was going through, and they were talking about the revolution of the mindset and how people think. And going back to that analogy is, like a lot of people are like pessimistic. I don't know why. There's the 2 categories, right? Either you're in the half full or half empty glass category. And I don't think there's an in between. People say there might be, but I feel like you're either full, like you think today's going to be a great day, and then you think, "Oh, today's going to be a horrible day." And whatever you believe is really going to be the outcome. And I think if you go in with that philosophy that people are good by nature and you're not stalking them, right? As you could say, like you're not bothering them or hounding them or pesting them, because those are all negative connotation words. You are helping them, assisting them. You provide value. They just don't know who you are yet, because you could have that magic solution that changes their world, and they be forever thankful for you and send you Christmas cards every year and gifts to your family because you've helped them out so much. But it's just breaking down those barriers for them to give you that little bit of time to at least hear you out. And I feel like there's always this contradiction. Pat, I love to hear your philosophy on it. Is how do you define someone that is too pushy of a salesman? Because I know sales babble is just the average person, like just be normal and not aggressive, right? Like, and then how do you, I guess, get someone to rub that pushiness off of them and just be, friendly, like, "Hey, this is what's going on." Not, "Hey, call me back," or, like that commission breath or however people say it. They just want the deal. Any coaching tips?
Well, I think it's all about having less of a transactional view and more of a relationship view. And there's a lot of transactional examples in the world. When people see that, they go, "I guess that's how I have to be a salesperson." But it's really not that at all. In the world that I come from, the enterprise sales can take a year to 18 months. It can take a long, long time.
Wow.
And if they don't buy, in the case of the K-12 education, if they don't buy this year, it's going to be another year before you get another chance at them. Because most people, by the way, they don't pick the competition. They often pick the status quo. That's your that's your biggest competitor. So the idea is just be nice, take your sweet time. Sales managers are the number one guilty in creating environments that force people to feel like, "I need to make a sale now. I need to make a sale now. I need to make a sale now." And a lot of like how commissions work are wrong. I mean, they create bad behaviors, as opposed to lots of other professions where people aren't on commission, yet they do quality work, like firefighters, doctors, nurses, right? teachers. They're not on commission. I think sometimes people think that salespeople are some other kind of species. They're like they have some kind of different DNA in them. No, that's not. Lots of people are in positions where they're persuasive, but commission salespeople. If we could make the commissions, if we could make that compensation program properly, if we can design it properly, we can get people to do the right behaviors.
It's interesting that you're related to like firemen. I'm just thinking a commission-based fireman, and
what would it be like?
Lighting fires so we can put them out. And he's like, "Oh, I just put another one out."
Right. Salespeople will do that crap.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, what do you propose though? Like, as far as your philosophy, like how would you structure? Because you need revenue at the end of the day. You got to feed the mouths, put money on the table, or the company goes underwater. You can't live without revenue. So how would you incentivize, like dangle that carrot to make someone, I guess, perform or do greater than they even think they can? Because that's what Dre faces a lot, I'm sure. And, we all do, is trying to bring the most out of people. And sometimes financial incentives get people to do things that they normally wouldn't do on their own. Prospect on the weekends. Weekends are my time. But if there's extra value, then they might say, all right, I will take some of those work hours into my private life to benefit myself as well as the company. So I'm just trying to figure out, I guess, in your head, as you thought through the commission, like what would a plan look like to you that would keep the company afloat, keep the salespeople motivated, and everybody lives in harmony?
Money is not necessarily the big motivation that it used to be for people, especially with millennials and Gen Zs. Yeah. So I would manage people just like I manage everybody else. So let's say I have nursing staff. I mean, there's a set of metrics, there's a set of KPIs, key performance indicators that you need to look at, that people have to hit. Mm-hmm. And you do performance management on them, and once a quarter, at least once a year, at the very least. But good managers should be doing this like all the time. You're constantly looking at those metrics and saying, in the case of sales, it'd be things like, well, how many appointments did you get set? How many outreaches did you had? How many follow-ups did you do? Scheduled meetings are one of the most important indicators, and verbal commitments are very important. And then of course, the actual purchase order, but these are metrics that are really important. And I'm seeing like, you're just not set up a lot of meetings like that. Yep. And I'm going to promote you, and I'm going to pay you on how good a job you do setting these things up. Whether the deals close or not, to a certain degree, that's got nothing to do with the salesperson.
Yep.
It's got to be in the buyer's mind that there's value in the product or service that you're bringing. As long as they're doing their job, as long as they're setting meetings up and they're getting in front of people, I would be paying them well. And if they're poor at it, I'd be letting them go. Yeah. I would management like I do like accountants, like software engineers, just like you would every other person in the world. This is the thing. You know why people don't do this? Sales managers are lazy. What they think, they have this silly idea that, well, if I put them on commission and all people are motivated by making lots of money, then they'll just do it themselves. They'll work on weekends, they'll get up an hour earlier, they'll work 2 hours later. They're like, that's baloney. That's baloney. Because people aren't wired that way. Yeah. That is old school, and that is slowly going away from the interviews that I've been having with people. That's slowly disappearing.
So you made a good point, which is something we've discussed a lot on our shows, is social media. So you said, right, in terms of the cold calling, you first connect with your prospect on LinkedIn. Maybe they use it, maybe they don't, but that's where you want to start. So I guess what's your advice on LinkedIn, Facebook, like using social media to find new leads?
It's great. It's terrific. It's terrific. Like the search functionality in LinkedIn is really, really great. So, like things I'm doing like right now on LinkedIn, I've got over 4,200 connections on LinkedIn. I'm reaching out to everybody who's at first level, who's at who's got the title marketing in them. And I'm reaching out to them saying, look, I just made a post on this topic on why you need a B2B interview-based podcast. And would you give me some love? Would you comment on it? You're somebody who's already connected with me. Would you comment or something like that? And people are more than happy to do that. And then when you know it, 1 out of 6, 7 times someone says, oh, this is a great article. I've been thinking about this. Oh, really? We should do a call about this. Because the thing is, where your focus flows, your energy flows, right? Where your focus goes, your energy flows.
Yeah.
And I start putting a lot of energy into this. People put energy in this, stuff happens, and things you couldn't even get. And lots of times I will often say too, like, I will not ask them directly if they want to start a B2B podcast. I will ask them, do you know anybody who might be interested in starting a B2B interview-based podcast to, boost their brand, their authority, their influence, their trust, grow revenue, increase their profit margins? You know anybody who's interested in that?
And they say me.
Yep.
So is that how you always start your first interaction then with somebody, is kind of going around it that way? Like, hey, who do you know? Or do you ever switch it up based on who you talk to?
That's one trick. Another trick is the advice trick. So let's say you're a startup, or you're promoting a product or a service that you've never done before. So you're trying to better understand who's your ideal client and stuff like that. I'll reach out to people and say, we got this idea. Don't know if it's a great idea. Yeah. We think it's really good, but we're not certain. We wonder if we could get some advice from you. Would you be open to answering a few questions about this? And lots of times people say, sure, it'll only take a half an hour, I promise. It's only 6 questions. And you get on there and they'll answer questions, and you'll start to realize whether or not you got the right idea, they're the right kind of person, and it's almost like qualifying them. And then when you get done, you say, hey, thanks, I really appreciate it. And that's it. Come back 2 weeks later and say, we talked to a lot of people. This is what we think's the right way of doing this. Does this sound about right, what you shared with me? And they'll go, yeah. And they'll go, can I buy that?
Interesting.
That's another way of approaching it. It kind of depends on what situation you're in, but there's lots of ways of making this very non-pushy and very, genuine.
True.
Well, you're just very much focused right on the relationship, as opposed to just calling and pitching them, throwing it down their throat and being done, which I think is good. I think it probably just depends on some of the sales, I think, that people are in, right? Because some may have like a longer sales cycle, like you were saying, 1.5 years, which is an eternity compared to ours, right? Like our sales cycle could be anywhere from the same day upwards of a couple months. So it's a little bit of a different sale, but.
Well, it's because you probably have less decision makers and the price point's probably low, right? So it's something where, it's like an Amazon pops up and says, from your purchases, we think you might enjoy buying this. And I look at it and I go, darn tootin', click.
Gotcha.
Right. But that's not, that's more of a B2C situation. Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually listening to one of the recent podcasts with what was it, Mark Petruzzi. It was talking about like relationship sales, kind of going back and that related to like the enterprise. And I sort of switch kind of gears here, but like we're talking about like the length of a sales cycle. And I think that's so important to Dre's topic is, how long is it before that customer buys, from introduction to closing that sale or getting that PO? And a lot of that happens with the government as well, right? People look at the government as enterprise sales, just due to the sales cycle. And GovSales University, what we do is we help people navigate those waters, because if you're on a co-op or you have a state contract, or you're sole source, you can cut down that sales cycle so they can work with you directly and just get that PO, like you said, to make that happen. Instead of going through that lengthy bid and RFP process and filling out paperwork.
That's painful.
You've been through it. So curious to hear, like, when you were out there developing the relationships with agencies, what are some things that worked for you to help with selling to the government?
Being really nice to everybody, really seeing it as the long game. The shuffling of people was really useful. Every year or two, everybody would shuffle. Superintendents, administrators on the selling. Yeah, people would switch.
Yep.
And then people who loved you, then it was easy for you to reach out to them. Oh, I see you're in a new district now.
Yeah.
Would you be interested in having us come visit? Absolutely. And they bring us with,
Yes.
And even though the person who was the proponent for my product or service left the district, the product's still in there. So then you get these other people in here who never wanted to buy it, but because they moved in, they're going, oh, I guess it's not so bad. And then you start getting this whole word of mouth thing going. And it'd be awesome, like to be at a conference, in the aisle handing out. I love working at conferences. You're handing out cards and just striking up a conversation. And one of your customers walks up while you're talking to them and they say, oh, we got this. It's the best. And then you just step back and you let them talk. Let them do all the selling.
All the time. Like agencies want to hear from other agencies. No matter how loud you are or great marketing materials, nothing beats an agency telling them that they've had success.
Government's slow. It's a slow sale. They have to dot all their I's, cross all their T's. They can't look like that they have any kind of like bias on any level, and as a seller, you just got to be very, very patient with this whole thing. And to the best of your ability, relationships can avoid things like RFPs.
Yeah, so that's what we try to help out folks with navigating, because the whole thing is, if you're responding to RFPs, it might be a little too late. So you want to get ahead of that curve so they can spec in your product so they can actually focus on what and then if you can include piggyback language so other agencies that follow that procurement process can piggyback off of that contract so they don't even have to go through the bid and RFP process.
Mm-hmm.
And once you get into that cycle, life gets a lot easier. Sales start happening a lot quicker. Because that's one thing, like you said, like everyone thinks, oh, it's going to take 12 months to a year. It does come down to price point. I definitely respect that opinion. Depending on what it is your sell, is it a couple $1,000s or a couple $1 million? Because there are discretionary thresholds where they can kind of, call 3 vendors and, pick the best one that they like, depending on where that is in their rules and regulations handbook.
I often found, though, what we were selling was price really is never really an issue. People always said, hey, price is really important. Mm-hmm. But time and time again, after when the sale got all done, and if I looked at what all the things was important to them, price was probably 6th on the list.
Yep.
Yeah. So when people say that, don't let that catch you, especially if you're selling a premier product that's more expensive. Don't let that tick you off and say, oh, I'm never going to win this. Just know in your heart that people just say that. What's really important is about the value that you can bring to the organization. If you can bring value to the organization, they'll pay it.
Well, they actually changed the verbiage on RFPs to kind of cover their butts as well. Before it was best price, but then it changed to best value. And that's one thing, because they can justify, because people would complain and protest bids and RFPs saying, what the heck, I lost, boo-hoo, how could I was the cheapest? And they're like, cheapest doesn't mean you're best. So we're looking for the best in value. So yeah, to your point, totally agree.
Yep.
What kind of companies, so for the consulting side of what you do, what kind of companies do you typically work with, or like who's your ideal prospect?
A technology company.
Yeah.
A technology company. Especially those that are introducing something new. That's been the most fun. I really like startups. And I'm still pretty techie, even though I've been doing sales. I've stayed in technology. So if you want to talk about Kubernetes or cryptocurrencies or blockchains and crap like that, I'm somewhat conversant.
I think I had Bitcoin. I don't know. I bought Bitcoin and all those when they first came out, and now that just sits in my little Coinbase app, and I check it periodically.
Yep. I've bought and sold. I've not been a hodler. I've not been. So, yeah.
And I missed out on that wave. I'm scared.
I think mine is worth like nothing now. I'm not really sure though.
You might be surprised.
I'll have to check it. I'll check it after this.
Show it to the audience. How much does Dre have in her?
Probably not a lot. Well, just to follow up on that. So like, what does the process normally look like? So you find a startup company, they bring you on, like, then what?
the biggest problems a lot of these technology companies have is that they're pretty myopic on the value of their product. They think it's awesome. It's their baby.
Yes.
And you never tell somebody their baby's, that's kind of an ugly baby.
All babies are cute.
All babies are cute. And then they're shocked and surprised that people don't flock and buy it. So the first step is to have them wake up to the reality of their product. And kind of going back to what we were talking about, the advice trick, is to get them into meetings with prospective clients, but make it look, it's not a sales call. And that's what I teach them. This is not a sales call. That it is that we're just going to ask some opinions, see if we can get some advice out of people, get a feedback on what they think what we're building makes sense, even if it's already built. But we talk like we're in the process of building.
Yeah.
Because although the founders may not think that, I know it's true. I've been in software a long time. There's like a lot of iterations, and from that you can get a lot of you can become self-aware of what the product really good or not. Stuff like, would this work for you? Would it not work for you? What advice do you have for us? Stuff like that.
Sure.
That's it. So Abanero Media. I need to know, Pat, how did you come up with the name?
Oh, I really like habanero peppers. I grow them.
Okay.
I've become quite the gardener, especially in the last year working from home. I pretty much haven't left. So last year was the first year I had a garden where every single plant started from a seed. A lot of them started in a microgrowery I have in my downstairs basement. I have a whole little. So habanero peppers are one of my favorites. They're very hot, very hot. They're 20,000 on the Scoville scale compared to a jalapeno, which is 3,000. So they're way up there, but just the sweetness to them. That's really good. I love the color. It makes it's very cheery. Abanero Media is a hot idea. Podcasts are the new blogging. And and it's a very intimate form of content marketing. Unlike a video like this, unlike a blog post, unlike a YouTube, unlike lots of other social media things, it's something that people can do two things at once. I can go for a walk, I can drive a car, I can do housekeeping. There's lots of things I can do. And it's very intimate. It's in between your ears. And people listen to them all the way to the end, as opposed to quick scanning an Instagram photo or quick scanning something. So people can really get to know you. And if they know you and they like you and they see the value that you're bringing, they might buy from you.
That's it. Well, I was wondering if you could share. I know you've got a great, Sales Babble podcast, but startup companies and tech space, if someone's looking to get into creating their own, podcasts, is there any stories that you could share as far as like how a podcast has changed a business and, grow their sales or marketing and revenue to get them to that next level?
Yeah, I've got a bunch of stories, actually. Let me think of one.
Your favorite, or at least favorite.
I got these two ladies who have a caregiving business, and they actually do like powers of attorney, and they help people navigate through the medical system, and especially people who don't have a lot of family and a lot of backup. And they started a podcast a year ago. I think they're on 16 or 17 episodes right now. They're doing like a couple a month, and their business has exploded because they used to be just here. They were just working with people in Illinois, but now people listen to them all over the country, and they've had people reach out to them to do partnering and to try to be on their podcast, and they're creating products and they need partners in order to provide some of these services. So I remember one day they called me up. They're like, "Oh, Pat, we're so excited. This is exactly what you said. These people reached out to us and we're getting all this business from them." It's like, oh, awesome. Another cool thing about podcasts is that you can interview prospective clients, people that you are really hard to meet, people who wouldn't meet with you, who don't have the time of day for you. But if you ask them to be a guest, they'd be more than happy to go on. You're an expert in your industry. We're doing the industry podcast. Could you come on and share your advice? Oh, sure. And then you're building relationships.
Yeah.
Relationships is everything in sales. It's everything.
So do you feel like podcasts work better for some types of industries versus others?
Oh, no, they can work for all kinds of industries. I've got people in Airbnb businesses, wine business, resident property, management property software companies, marketing agencies. It's all IT, MSPs, all over the place. It's for some of these companies, it's really not important you get a big audience. It's not the audience that matters. It's the guests that matters. It's the relationships you can build with the guests. I met a guy at Podcast Movement. We were talking about this before. I was in Orlando, where you guys are from, right? Or you're in Florida or someplace, right? I met a guy who had hardly any listeners, but all his prospective clients, all his customers came from interviewing them on the podcast. He didn't care if a lot of people listened to it, but it was an opportunity for him to have an authentic, genuine conversation. It was great if people listened to it, but it wasn't his number one goal. It wasn't trying to be Joe Rogan, right?
Why do you think you're here today, Pat?
Sorry, what?
So why do you think you're here today?
To make me a customer? You want me?
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Well, I got this RFP that I'm working on. That's really, really hard.
No,
you guys can. Yeah. And I sometimes do that on my own podcast. Not always. I have lots of people on the podcast that are never going to be prospective clients. But like my wife always says, it's your podcast, Pat. You can do whatever you want.
True.
And
I'm actually trying to look up right now how much the government spends on podcasts every year. So as I'm loading, I'm taking guesses right now. Andrea, I'm going to start with you. How much?
I'm going to guess 80.2. I think I'm far off. 80.2 million?
Oh, my goodness.
Too high.
This is all government. I was going to say 10.
I'm high, huh?
Government.
I'm going to change it. Can I change 8.9 mil?
No, it's too late.
Hold on. Yeah, your number's in. No fair. Pat, what was your guess?
10 million.
10 million. So what's very interesting is that it's been hovering around, I'm going back to 2013 up until today. It's been hovering around that $1 million mark year after year.
1 million.
Guess what happened during the pandemic?
Went up to 7 million.
6.24 million. It literally spikes like a heartbeat, like right in 2020, because I guess they're trying to communicate with citizens, engagement. Really just went through the moon, six times greater than what they were doing on an annual basis.
Well, podcasting changed immensely last year. This time last year, my episodes plummeted.
Really?
Yes. Because everybody was living a weird life. They were used to listening to my podcast while they were driving. They weren't driving anymore. Yep. They were used to do it when they were doing workout. All the schedules changed. And then I reflected on that and realized I wasn't listening to any of the podcasts I'm used to listening to, like Seth Godin's podcast.
No,
I wasn't interested in that. But I started listening to the daily because there was daily updates on what's going on with the virus and what's going on with all that kind of stuff. And I found my own listening of podcasts changed a lot. It all came back, though, by the end of the summer. But there was an interesting dip. So I totally believe that. People were looking for alternative ways to get information. And everything, there was this whole musical chair switch. Yeah.
I was guilty too. I would actually listen to Joe Rogan sometimes. And now I don't listen to him anymore. But also he went to Spotify, I think. Or who did he sign the deal with?
Spotify.
Was it Spotify? Right. Yeah. And I had in my car, I could just play it through Bluetooth, and I didn't have the Spotify app. So I didn't listen.
You can.
Yeah.
You can make it work.
I can do it. So yeah. Pat, it's been a pleasure today, and really love having you here.
You guys have been awesome.
Is there anything else you want to share with the audience? Any gems from guests or anything that helps sales or people podcasts or anything in life for that matter?
Tell us your secrets.
Those dark secrets. Who haunts the barn at night?
Treat everybody that you meet like they're your first or second cousin.
Okay.
Treat everybody like they're not a stranger. So that means like you would, like, let's say you go to a funeral, you go to a wedding, somebody you haven't seen in a while. Ask them like, how you doing? It's been so long. How's your husband doing? How's your kids? How's your mom? She's still doing that? She's still doing that? If you treat people like they're real humans and ask them what's going on in their lives, they'll tell you.
Amen.
Take a genuine interest then.
Wholeheartedly believe that. Hits home right here to my heart.
Well, and everyone, just to like comment on that, like everybody likes to talk about themselves. So if you start, and on all of my calls too, right, I want to show them what I want to show them. Like I already know in the back of my head, this is my goal for the call. But once you start asking them questions just about everything, life, their kids, are they back in school, just like actually taking a genuine interest and wanting to know. I know some things about people that I'm like, I wouldn't even know that about my friend or my sister, right? People just love to talk about themselves, and not in a narcissistic way, but they just like to tell you things.
Some people are uncomfortable with it.
Yeah.
Being asked. But if you're awake, you can ask them about stuff that they care about versus them.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. What website do you go on to find interesting facts about folks, Pat? I feel like you're a techie guy. You might have some secret. You were talking about finding email addresses some way. Like, besides LinkedIn, what's your second favorite site to get a little research or background prior to your calls?
Hunter.io.
Hunter.io.
All right. That's a gem. I'll check that one out as well. I got Steven Shiftman on my notepad, right? That's who wrote your first book?
Yeah. He's a good guy.
Hunter.io.
You might want to have him on the podcast. He's awesome.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. If you recommend.
Yeah, he's a good guy. Yeah. He's been doing it forever, much longer than me.
Great. Yeah. Well, we look forward to doing more, Pat. It's been a pleasure, and thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it for having us on.
Thanks,
You guys have been terrific. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll talk soon. So, Dre, that was great. I love just the warmness I could definitely feel from Pat. It's about being genuine and coming from like a tech background to transition into sales. To me, like that leap is just showing that anybody could do it. I feel like people give sales this stigma, but when he just breaks down the barriers and says, look, this is who I am. Just be a normal person. Treat you like the other person, like they're your cousin, like that. Like that's just really like it makes sense to me, and I think that's something I take for granted. That's how I was born and raised. Just that's you walk and say hi to a stranger, right? City of brotherly love, Philadelphia. Hey,
not down in South Florida. You walk past somebody, they're like, "Are you looking at me?" Oh, sorry.
It's crazy. Yeah, you like don't make eye contact. Like I wave to every neighbor, everybody that drives up and down the street. Hey.
They all wave back.
Not all of them. Right? But that is South Florida.
Yeah.
But it's not going to change who I am. This guy, I'm just going to to be Steve. And I'm like, who's this crazy guy always waving to me? Maybe
opposite of a car salesman approach, literally.
Yeah, true. Yeah, but anything else, Dre, kind of wrap up. Joe, Jack, we definitely missed you today, but I hope you're enjoying Texas with the family.
Eating a lot of barbecue. I see all his posts. He's eating a lot of barbecue. I should have posted the picture. He posted yesterday the picture of a huge potato with all this, I don't know, barbecue in it. I should have taken a picture. He's living the best life.
Get that up. Team GovCast. Bring that up.
I could probably find it for you too. No, we missed you, Jack. That was awesome. I think, Pat, we're going to have you back on here.
Yeah, you can learn a lot from this guy. So
here's his potato.
You got to bring up a picture? That looks awesome right now, especially since it's lunchtime and I'm very hungry.
I know.
So I'll wrap it out in the spirit of Illinois with Chicago Bulls theme, and we'll be out of here. See y'all later.